Morning, we welcome you to the funeral services for Sister Dorothy Richard Thomas. We recognize that there are family here in the chapel, many of the family here in the chapel. So good to see you, and we know that there are many people who are watching elsewhere. We welcome them as well. If you could see what I see a beautiful family here in front of me that is missing their grandmother, and their mother, and their great-grandmother. Today we're here to comfort each other and to celebrate her life. My name is David Morgan. I'm the Bishop of the Oak Hills Ninth Ward, and I'll be conducting today. We just had a family prayer that was given by Barry Thomas. Sister Leslie Nettles will provide the music today on the organ and on the piano. Our opening hymn will be "Because I Have Been Given Much," after which the invocation will be given by Robin Rouse, who is Dorothy's son-in-law.
Our Father in heaven, we're indeed grateful to be able to come together as family and friends during this pandemic to recognize, celebrate, and honor Dorothy Richards Thomas, a beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. Dorothy has touched all of our lives in one way or another, and we're all better for it. We're thankful for her caregivers over these last few years, for the services that they provided in assisting Dorothy and Glenn, and that we're able to give them as good a quality of life as possible, and also that they were able to let her stay in her home until she passed from this earth. We ask a blessing on her children as they speak today, that they may be able to convey their love and memories and be comforted as they give their talks. We ask a special blessing on Glenn at this time, that he may be comforted with the family that is around him and be able to draw upon them as he needs. Be comforted, Glenn, that knowing the plan of salvation, that you will be with your beloved wife again, and that she saves a seat at the table for you when your time on earth is done. We're thankful for all our many blessings. And at this time, we dedicate this service to Dorothy, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Brother Rouse. The program today is as follows. Our first speaker will be Sister Stacy Thomas Rouse. She's Dorothy's daughter. She'll be followed by Greg Thomas, who is her son. And then we'll have a musical number by Sister Tina Robertson, Going Home. She'll be accompanied by Sister Nuttall. Following that musical number, Kevin Thomas will speak to us. Barry Thomas will also speak to us. And I'll give some closing remarks.
We do things in birth order, you're either first or you're last, and I'm not sure which one is harder today. But here we go. This is going to be a little rough, because although we've all known this time was coming, we're just not ever truly prepared to lose someone like Mom. She has taught me a lot these last several years as I've watched her accept her with peace and patience, her declining mobility, and often scattered thoughts. She has been an incredible example of sweetness and gratitude, and what it truly means to endure to the end. I have been grateful for my faith during this time, grateful for the atonement of our Savior Jesus Christ, and for the plan of salvation. And I am catching up with family and old friends. I'm sure she is happy to have regained her mobility, her clarity of thought, and yes, her hearing. I'd like to think of her here with us today as we remember her life and all the wonderful things that she did for all of us here. As part of my thoughts today, I've been asked to give a life sketch, so I will do that first. Dorothy, or Dot Richards Thomas, was born in the small town of Malad, Idaho, to Isaac Emer and Nancy Parker Richards on April 11th, 1927. She was the youngest of 5 children. Letha was almost 13 years older than Mom. She looked up to her, but they were never really very close. Delone was the second daughter and tragically developed something called Bright's disease. It's with the kidneys, and passed away at the age of 8, 2 years before Mom was born. Mom did spend time with Parker, the oldest son, but was closest to Boyd, who was just 5 years older. Boyd was her buddy growing up. Mom's early years were spent during the Great Depression. Money was tight and the family got by on very little. They lived on a dryland farm of 300 acres in Pust, Idaho for a time, but eventually settled in a small 3-room home in Malad, Idaho. Mom and her brothers created their own fund. In the wintertime, the snow would cover the fences and the fence posts. We've all heard that story, right? Uphill school both ways in the snow. But they would use the scoop shovels from the granary, sleds, sitting on the shovel and holding onto the handle in front. She taught us how to go down our driveway that way on shovels. Yeah, we had the best driveway in the neighborhood. It was a ton of fun. When shovels weren't available, they used tin tubs and dishpans. Grandpa made them a toboggan, and they would come down the hill, all 4 together. They really had a lot of fun. Parker and Boyd used to tie their skis together and fasten sheets to them for sails, a little before their time, I think, when the wind would blow. They could go for miles without running into anything, If the wind wouldn't cooperate, then they would ski behind the horses, holding on for dear life. They could go for miles and miles out on the farm without ever getting stopped. She also recalled that there was a river that kind of ran through the property, and there was a certain bank they could cover a little bit, and it would stay frozen, and they could make homemade ice cream clear into the summer. Boyd taught Mom how to ride horses when she was very small. All of the farm equipment was pulled by her. She could catch her own horse and then climb up to a nearby fence to get on since she wasn't tall enough. Mom was considered a tomboy because she was always hanging out with her brothers and working on the farm. She trampled hay, ran the derrick, horse, and fork. I had to look that up. I had no idea what that was. Helped tie sacks on the wheat combine, and she also had to clean the separator and run the hand washing machine. When they were left home alone, Boyd taught Mom how to drive the truck. She was 9 years old when she got behind the wheel. They would go out on the farmland and just drive and drive. Another one of her favorite memories was, the favorite thing to do with Boyd was to make taffy. And they would pull it, they would do this when they were home alone, and they would pull and stretch it and hang it in ropes across the cupboard handles. Every time she made that with me growing up, she told me that story, and she loved to think of Boyd and her making taffy. Mom went to school in Malad from the 3rd grade through high school. Grandma Nancy worked on the school lunch worker, and Grandpa Isaac Emer worked with the WPA for a time. Mom was baptized at the age of 8. She couldn't remember exactly what caused the circumstances, but she clearly remembered being baptized in a horse watering trough. We recently just found pictures of that, where she was standing by the trough, and when I could see it, I could picture it. It was much larger than what we think of. It was a big square out on the dry land that had a well that filled it. So now I can picture her getting baptized there. Mom liked school. She played in the junior high band and continued all through high school playing the trumpet. She was in the marching band and also the orchestra. She participated in the pep club and student government until she graduated from high school in 1945. She loved to go dancing and would travel with friends to Ogden. She used to tell me about this all the time. They always had live bands in Ogden, so they'd pile as many of them as they could into a car and go almost every weekend. She loved to go dancing. Mom stayed in Malad after graduation and worked for a year for JCPenney's. Then she moved to Provo to attend Brigham Young University. She started working for Thomas Department Store part-time, but the finances didn't quite hold out, and so she had to stop BYU and go to work full-time. After 2 years at Thomas's, she got a job at Provo City Department of Utilities, where she spent another 2 years. It was on one of her lunch breaks at City Drug that she caught the eye of Glenn Albert Thomas, her husband of more than 70 years. Dad was home working on school break over Christmas, and he saw Mom sitting at the soda fountain. She was completely surrounded by Provo City policemen that were, trying to get her attention. So Dad waited till they all left, and then she went and asked the gal behind the counter, and she said, who is that? Where does she work? So Dad found out where she worked, got her number, called her, and of course she was already booked out for a couple of weeks. So he had to be kind of patient, he had to keep after it. And he finally got his date a couple weeks later, and the rest is history. They were married on September 20th, 1950 in the Salt Lake Temple. Dad graduated from the University of Utah with a degree in pharmacy and enlisted in the United States Air Force. He and Mom were sent to Enid, Oklahoma, Advanced Air Force Pilot Training Base, where he served on the base hospital as a pharmacist for 4 years. Mom worked for sales, jewelry store to keep her busy until giving birth to their oldest son, Barry. Dad was released from the Air Force not long after, and the threesome traveled back to Provo, where Dad went to work the very next day. They rented a home for a couple of years, and then they bought their first home on 3rd West, which is where we all started, the younger three started. During that time, Glenn and Dorothy completed their family with the births of 2 more sons, Kevin and Greg, and their daughter Stacy. We all moved into our home here in Oak Hills in 1967. It's been a while. Mom's first priority was always her family. She made sure we had what we needed and supported us fully in all of our activities. She made sure we all learned how to swim at the very young age because she never learned how to swim. And she was convinced that we would somehow end up drowning and she wouldn't be able to save us. So that was the first thing she did, was make sure we knew how to swim. She drove us back and forth to the mountain during the winters to ski and tube and supported us through many baseball, soccer, hunting, and swim meet seasons. She encouraged music lessons and endured many lengthy dance recitals. She ran us to the hospital for stitches, concussions, and was there for us every minute. Mom loved fun. She wanted to be involved in everything and had a wonderful sense of humor. She played golf and enjoyed participating in different lady clubs where activities were happening monthly. She was an active member of the Provo JC Wives and served in her community. She and Dad participated in something they finally called study group, where a group of about 10 couples, their friends through the years, would gather together every other Sunday night in someone's home. And they would have some kind of yummy, yummy treat. I spent many a Sundays helping Mom prepare for this. And they would sit in a circle in the living room and read the scriptures and study the gospel together. It was quite an example for us kids. She was an active, lifelong member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mom served in many callings, but truly loved being with the children in primary. When she retired, she served in the Provo Temple for many years. She was an Mom worked hard all of her life, giving service to her family and community, helping out at City Drive for several years when Grandma Jenny May got sick, and her last out-of-home job working at ZCMI, where she retired after 10 years. Mom had a keen eye for beautiful things and had excellent taste. She was a very classy lady in every sense of the word, and always dressed and looked just so. She was proud of her family and adored her 21 grandchildren and 17 great-grandchildren. There were many times throughout the years that her family needed her, and she was always there with open and welcoming arms. She was gracious and kind, loving, and so much fun. The last several years were very difficult for Mom. She suffered a severe ankle injury in a car accident in 2013 that limited her mobility and took away so many of the freedoms that she had loved. She could no longer participate in the things that had kept her so vital. Slowly but surely, she lost her independence and the ability to be a doer. She had always been a doer. Even though she was limited in what she could do, she never complained and was so grateful and happy to spend time with family and friends. She was gracious and sweet and always quick to say thank you. Her family will miss her so, so much, but we will remember her with love, gratitude, and always a smile. She was truly one of a kind. The following are just a few thoughts that I would like to share with you about my mom. Special moments that we shared. Sitting with Mom in the ski lodge, making houses out of cereal while my brothers skied. Lunch at Taco Bell. When I was in high school, her favorite thing was always the tostadas. Long talks at the kitchen table when I was the only child left at home. Buying trips for jewelry and gifts for the drugstore. Trips to Salt Lake to Trolley Square Market for kumquats. She would take me to this fun clothing store down on Provo Center Street called Scene 2. My favorite store. She would spoil me rotten. Talks in the wee hours of the morning when she would come and stay with me after the births of each of my children. She was my chaperone at the temple when I took out my endowment. in preparation to be sealed to my family. Things I am grateful for. Grateful for the life that she gave me, for the unconditional love she offered me even when I disappointed her, for her loving care of my children, for the fun that we had, for her example of faith, for her example of service, her kindness and hard work, the endless chauffeuring to dance classes and swimming lessons. I could always count on her. I'm grateful for the Elevation Hospice people that came in and took care of Mom, Joylyn, Bonnie, Michelle, and Ashley for the care and assistance that they gave to her. I'm very grateful for Barry and Catherine and for their service to Mom and Dad over the past several years. They made it possible for Mom to stay in her home. If not for that and this pandemic, we would not have been able to say our goodbyes to Mom as she left this mortal life. It was a very special and tender time. Ways I want to be like her. She was generous with her time and she always had a listening ear. She was humble, a quiet hero that did much but never wanted the light shone on her. She was patient more than anyone that I've ever known. She was kind and thoughtful. Things that will always remind me of her. Birds and bird feeders. I have 2 feeders of my own at my house, and every time I fill them, it will be impossible to not think of Mom. Spices on the stove every fall. Christmas, flock trees, ribbon candy, and lights. Halloween decorations, cider, chili, and donuts. Easter egg hunts, the best. 4th of July fireworks and homemade raspberry ice cream. Diet Coke, hair salons, designer fingernails, jewelry, and perfume. Deer in her backyard and on the mountain. Ski lodges, tubing, solitaire. We played a lot of solitaire at that kitchen table. Puzzles, num-num, rice pudding, macaroni and milk. All flowers. Mom loved her flowers. I want to share just a thought from each of my children so I can represent them a little bit today. Grandma is very special to them. Sarah will always remember going with Grandma to feed the ducks when we came to visit. She remembers going to Macy's to pick up a big bag of popcorn or a couple loaves of bread. Snacking on it on the way, that was key. And spending the rest of the afternoon throwing it to the ducks and running away from the pesky geese. Sarah's favorite quality of Grandma's is that she always took genuine interest in the lives of those that she loved. She can't ever remember having a conversation with Grandma where she wasn't excited to hear about her life. It didn't matter what she was talking to her about, school, boys, basketball games, you name it. She made her feel like the most important person in the world every time she talked to her. One of Jessica's favorite memories of Mom was when we went to the Tulip Festival at Thanksgiving Point. Grandma loved flowers, and it was so much fun to spend that day with her. She also remembers a really fun shopping trip. They went to a store called Claire's, which is full of accessories and jewelry. Mom accidentally got a pair of sunglasses hooked to the strap of her purse. They walked out of the store having no idea. Several panicked. As they went through the mall, they realized what had happened, and there were a lot of panicked moments as Jessica had to race the sunglasses back to the store in hopes that the mall security had not been contacted. Jessica will miss pampering Mom and manicures and pedicures. She loved that one-on-one time with Mom, and Mom was always so grateful and complimentary. Colin's favorite thing to do with Grandma was to go for a ride and stop at Ripples for root beer freezes. He had his very first freeze with her, and he was always up for a ride in hopes of stopping by for another. Colin remembers Grandma's hugs and her smile and happiness when he came to visit. He was impressed with her eyesight and the way she could find things out in the yard that no one else could see. You could walk out and find it if you took the time. She just had incredible eyesight. It was very difficult for Grandma to get out of the house, but she always expressed her desire to come watch him play football or any of the other numerous sports that he participates in. He knew she would have been there if she could have been. He shares her love of Swedish fish and chocolate almonds and will miss her kind eyes. These days, weeks, months, and years to come without Mom will be difficult, especially for Dad, who loves her so. We will all miss her kindness, remember her seat at the table, and watch out the back window for her quail and her deer. Mom, thank you for your love and example. We will carry you in our hearts until we see you again.
Somebody said there was people watching. I hope not. Stacy told me to talk for 10 minutes so I could have my kids talk. So I told Kyle, you can talk if you want. He said, and just tell him when I didn't behave, Grandma'd bend me down and spank me with a spoon. So thanks, Kyle. I'm first going to say some stuff for the grandkids and the great-grandkids that don't know much about Dad. Dad used to work 10, 12, 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. And he did that to provide for us, give us everything we wanted, and we had it. He was always at work and never home, and that left Mom to take care of all of us. An example that he set for us boys and for Stacy of work and dedication to family. Mom and Dad raised the four of us, but they also helped raise my children. And I'm so grateful to them for that. Now we'll go to Mom. Mom, Mother, what do those words mean? Some of the words that come to my mind that describe Mom are beautiful, strong, a friend, gracious, selflessness. And in my case, words that apply to me were patience, understanding, forgiveness, and love. One example of that is Daddy just bought Mom a brand new Buick. Beautiful car, loaded with everything. For you tech guys that had an 8-track. Well, our youngest boy wrecked that car. Not a word was said in anger that was never brought up again. She just continued to love me, and that was Mom. Mom wore many hats in our family as we were growing up. She was the chief cook and bottle washer. She was a teacher, a nurse, a taxi driver, a referee, disciplinarian, and judge. She had to referee all the disputes over what to watch on TV, whose turn it was for the motorcycle, or who got the car that day, or where we'd go out to eat, and many other things that siblings can't agree on. Stacy touched on a bunch of them, but we had many cuts and bruises and broken bones, and it was Mom's job to take us to the doctor and get us fixed and take care of us. And Stacy already talked about Mom and music, but a lot of them don't know that Mom loved big band music, Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, and she even played in some of those bands. She played in a band with one of our old neighbors here, Leo Vernon. She also gave service. She played taps at the graves of fallen soldiers. Most of what I'm going to say is when I'm young. Mom had lots of friends, but one friend stuck out in my mind more than others, and her name was Marge Ford. She lived straight across the street. Our front doors were lined right up. She'd come over and hang out with Mom, and she was bigger than life. She had a real low, raspy voice, and she was loud. Dad reminded us of a story the other day. Marge had been over visiting and had gone home and called Mom on the phone. "Did I leave my coffee pot over there?" And Mom said, "No, it's not here." A little while later, she called back and said, "Well, I found it. It's in my fridge." Ford's owned Ford Meat Locker in Provo, and we had one there. Bert and Jen had cows on the farm, so when the cow went to get cut up, our meat was in the locker. And you go in there and Marge would treat you like you were the greatest thing on earth. But once that door opened, it was cold. As little kids, especially for me, holidays were very big. Especially this time of Thanksgiving. Mom would spend countless hours making all of our favorite food and making the house look beautiful and setting a beautiful table. Christmas was really big. We didn't have any malls or outlet stores. So all of our shopping was done downtown Provo, which had 3 blocks on University Avenue and 3 blocks on Center Street. Our big stores for the kids, and Crest, Woolworths, JCPenney's, Furnages, and Kittyville. And for the adults, there was Thomas's, which Mom worked at, Dion's, Hoover's, Levin's, Sears, and Clark's. to take each one of us alone, one at a time, to buy gifts for each other. And one of my favorite things was going to Clark's. They had a roasted chestnut cart on the sidewalk, and we'd always go get one. Mom's trees, they were always the best. Until she got that tree that's in the house now, she'd always go to Liddell Baum's Christmas tree lot on Grandview Hill. Liddell would flock the tree and deliver it to the house. Liddell does construction, and about 10 years ago I talked to him about Mom, and I asked him, did you deliver a lot of trees to people? And he said, no, not many. I did it for your mother because she was so kind to me and my family. My favorite tree that we ever had was in our old house on 3rd West. It was just a plain green tree with the old bubble lights, tinsel and ornaments. It was perfectly wrapped gifts underneath it. Easter was the big tradition for our family, started by Grandma Bert and Grandma Jen. Mom and Grandma Jen would go out and hide stuff all over the yard at the farm. We were always dressed to a T, and I know you saw some of the pictures on that video. We had our little suits with our bow ties and our fedora hats. Stacy in her dress with white gloves and her little hat. It was quite the event. Stacy talked about the 4th of July. That was another big one for us. Cookout at Mom and Dad's. All the good food, fun, games, and waiting for the fireworks that we can't see anymore because the trees grew. Halloween, Mom and her decorations made it fun. She always had hot cider and chili and donuts. When we were in the primary, in I don't know which ward, Oak Hills, whatever, when we went to the church down on 9th East, Mom was part of the primary, and they made the church into a spook alley for the kids, down through the hallways and then back out the other hallway and out. And that was pretty neat thing for little kids. Back to Taxi Driver. Stacy touched on it. Mom had to take us to all of our activities, sports, music, scouts. At a very young age, she started all of us skiing at Temp Haven, which you guys know as Sundance. And all there was a little T-bar straight up the front and a tubing hill and a lodge. She would get us to our classes in the junior Benu ski school and then go sit in the lodge and wait for us all day. She must have been very happy when we were able to drive ourselves. Kevin and I had early morning swim practice for the BYU Dolphins. Coach Bester taught at the Richard Building swimming pool. Mom had to get up early, take us down, then come back and get us when we were done, and then go to school. He was baseball, and he was good. I remember traveling to all-star games in Idaho. He also became a drummer, so Mom had to take him to Hurt Your Music in Provo for drum lessons. And then they got him a drum set. Vacations were a big thing for me as a little kid. take us down to California, to Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, to the beach. He even took us into Tijuana. We came back with lots of fireworks. Another fun one was down to Fish Lake. We stayed in a little cabin and went fishing. They took us to the Grand Canyon, and that was a fun trip. Yellowstone. Now, one summer, Mom got brave. She went and rented a little camp trailer, pulled it with the station wagon, and took us camping just below Deer Creek Dam in a little campground. That was pretty cool, all by herself. Mom and Dad would take us on little weekend trips. They had a friend that owned Best Western Motels. We'd go down to Nephi or up to Heber, and they had a pool, so we'd get to swim, and then we'd get to go eat out. For me, that was really neat. And my parents took the time to make us feel special. Back to the chief cook and bottle washer. I don't know what year this started, but some big fad came out. It was called fondue. Mom used to get real excited about that. She had 3 or 4 pots, one with boiling oil. You'd put steak in it. The others with cheese and chocolate and all kinds of things to dunk in it. And we'd sit around the table and eat until we were